This is Dr. Jason Shumard with Integrative Wellness Center of San Diego and also the author of How to Reverse Your Diabetes. And today I wanted to spend some time talking to you about food sensitivities and the impact of food sensitivities on your body, especially your diabetes, and more importantly, how it can impact your blood sugars. So many people get food sensitivities and allergies really mixed up. So I want to clear that up first and make sure we understand what a sensitivity is and what an allergy is and how they impact your body differently. So let's flip the page here and we'll talk about an allergy. An allergy, a food allergy, and these are common things like maybe some peanuts, shellfish, those sort of things, or could be other allergies as well, things that are more environmental like a bee sting or pollen, those sort of things. That's going to come from an immunoglobulin. So immunoglobulin E, that's a specific type of immunoglobulin, and it's an immune reaction in your body. So it's a very hyperreactive response. Maybe you get shortness of breath, swelling, your eyes swell up, maybe a lot of itchiness. Those sort of things are going to be happening. Now, from a food sensitivity, so a food sensitivity, what that response is going to be either an IgA, IgM, or IgG. So these are the three different types of immunoglobulin reactions you're going to experience. Now, what's interesting about these guys is they're not going to oftentimes create the same type of symptoms that you'll experience from an immunoglobulin E response. Again, if I get stung by a bee, and I do have an allergy to bees, so I'll get very swollen. Maybe I get shortness of breath, I can't breathe, my body starts to swell up, those sort of things can start to occur because I have an allergy to that specific response. Whereas if you have a sensitivity, oftentimes the responses are completely different. You may have zero symptoms. And a common misconception with a sensitivity and an allergy, sensitivity is that you're going to have an immediate response. And that may not occur many times. Now, if it's an allergy to a food and you eat something, you're going to be going right to the bathroom, maybe throwing up or having some major stomach problems or GI issues immediately. But with sensitivities, that may never happen. So for example, a common sensitivity that we see in our offices someone may experience is gluten. Now, gluten is a common one that we see, and there's a reason for that, and I'll probably do a different video specifically on gluten and why that's important for us to understand why we see so many people have gluten sensitivities. It's not a fad, it's actually a true problem, true health issue. But you can eat gluten, for example, and have no symptoms in the gut, right? You have no bloating, gas, irritation, constipation, looseness, none of that could happen. And that's oftentimes a reaction for someone to experience, oh, I have a problem with this type of food, is they're looking for some sort of reaction. Now, you could eat gluten, for example, and maybe get some brain fog, maybe joint pain, maybe start to get some fatigue, maybe start to gain some weight, maybe some other issue is developing inside the body that can create a symptom that you may not even be aware of because it's too difficult to correlate with that. Now, it goes even further in the struggles of dealing with food sensitivities, because you can see there's three different types of immunoglobulins that can be reactive. Some of these are going to be immediate reactions, so you can eat a food and immediately get a headache. Well, maybe you may not realize that. Maybe you just think, oh, I haven't had enough water today. Or maybe you have had headaches for a couple of days. You're not really sure, is it just a correlating headache? Is it a migraine? What's going on? So, but when you have a sensitivity reaction, there's an immediate reaction, and where it gets even more difficult, there's a delayed reaction. So we can have immunoglobulin reactions that could happen from 2, 3, up to 4 days later from a food you ate. So imagine this. Imagine you went out, had an amazing dinner on a Sunday night, and then not until Thursday or Friday of that next week, you start not feeling so good. So as for most of us, we're thinking, well, what I eat the last 24 hours that could be correlating with this? But it could be something from last Sunday. I mean, that is how crazy disruptive these types of sensitivities can become. So how do sensitivities develop? Because allergies are typically something you're born with, right? So you have an allergic reaction to a specific X, Y, and Z. But sensitivities are acquired. So they're acquired throughout our life. That can happen from lifestyle or other types of problems that are going on inside the body. But for most sensitivities, the way they occur is they happen from what's called leaky gut. All right, so let's talk about leaky gut. A lot of people have heard of leaky gut, but they may not understand this true mechanism of it. So with leaky gut, basically, it's similar to what it sounds like. Your gut becomes leaky, right? So, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has holes in there, but what happens is if you look at a cellular level at the tissues of your gut, there's something that they come together like this, and they're called tight junctions. So these tight junctions come together like this, and they're supposed to hold everything inside the gut and keep everything away from outside the gut, away from it as well. But what happens is when you have these chronic issues, and chronic things that can cause leaky gut, by the way, can be chronic antibiotics. So taking multiple antibiotics, food that's more inflammatory. We could see other types of over-the-counter things like, Advil, Tylenol, those sort of things can be, so we can say over-the-counter painkillers. Just general inflammation, infections, toxicities. So there's a lot of things that can actually cause leaky gut, and many of these things may not even be something you even have. Like you may not be experiencing inflammation in your gut, but it could be going on. You may not even be experiencing infections, but we see all the time people having bacterial overgrowth, yeast, fungus, parasites. A whole slew of problems that are developing in the gut area. So this starts to create a weakening of the gut. And so what happens is these little tight junctions start to loosen up a little bit, kind of like your shoelace loosening up as well. As it starts to loosen up, you're creating these microscopic little holes that are not even visible to the eye. So now these small little particles can start to go through the barrier of the gut, which is inside the gut, to outside the gut. So what's outside the gut? The bloodstream. So, and what's in the bloodstream? Your immune system. Now there's some immune system function in the intestinal tract as well, but typically the food sensitivities develop outside of the gut. So what happens is you start to get these large, what are called macromolecules, undigested food, that start to go through this barrier and into the bloodstream. Well, the immune system sees that and says, oh, we've got a problem here. Now we've got to start attacking that specific food. And next thing you know, you start to create antibodies to these types of food. So now the immune system thinks that this specific food is bad. And now you've just created your first food sensitivity. So let's say that food particle that came through is an apple. Right now, we all know that apples are very healthy. They've got good fiber, good nutrients. They're good for our body. It's something we should be eating on some sort of regularity. We got to be careful with the sugar, but they're overall healthy.